Why does seeing people buy food with EBT food stamps physically upset people these days? They convinced poor PPL that Porter PPL are the problem. In reality, the amount that guy contributed to food stamps is so small vs the other bullshittery that his money actually went to. It's easier for him to think that's why he isn't a millionaire instead of understanding what's really going on. A lot of people are tremendous assholes who get off on hating anyone less well off than them. How would he even know? It's a EBT card, just like a credit debit card. Ah yes, those guys are amusing. When I was fostering, we got WIC for the kids, so I would buy the milk and formula with the WIC card, then pull out my Amex Gold for the rest of my groceries, and always had some jerk-off say something. I would have so much fun making them run off as I berated them about how they are not following Jesus, etc. Best part, I am atheist too, so I was just screwing with their heads. How did anyone even know though EBT was on a card now anyway? I've never seen anyone get upset like that over it. It's not just these days, it's been like that for decades. Back in the 90s, I remember people complaining that people could use their food stamps on things that weren't staples, or could buy things like snacks. They thought that they should have to survive on the cheapest foods, stuff like rice and beans, and their money shouldn't be going towards someone buying ingredients to make their child a birthday cake, or treats for themselves or their children. I really do not resent paying for other people's food if they need the help. I fucking well do resent paying for other people's yachts. 10-12 years ago, I was just starting my career and my wife was a psalm to our 2 children. She qualified for WIC, so for a year we used the program. Back then the benefits were checks that had the specific items. I was working 55 hours a week, and yet I would get horrible stares at the grocery store when we used these. It wasn't junk food either. Milk, cheese, fruit, vegetable, etc. After so many times of being made to feel bad, we quit using the program. People are quick to pass judgment and look down on others. It sucked, but I couldn't take it. I worked for a non-profit for a number of years, and before registration for summer camp was done, online parents would come on camp sign-up day, and part of the process could be applying for financial assistance. This meant a reduced rate for the kids to go to camp. The huge majority of parents who applied for assistance were embarrassed, and very often cried, "We wanted these kids to go to camp. We wanted these kids to have opportunities, and we wanted to give them assistance." I felt so bad that these parents were ashamed. I'm sure there are a handful of folks who may not deserve assistance, but it's probably a few and far between. We don't know their situation, and where is the empathy? People think poverty means you're lazy, instead of it often being a complex issue or factors beyond that person's control, like a disability. They only want people on food stamps to buy the bare minimum, and they shouldn't be allowed to buy anything nice or sweets. They also seem to think people dine on lobster every day on food stamps. Because it's taxpayer funded, they assume they get a say, when in reality they pay practically pennies towards it, and part of living in a society means everyone contributes for the common good even if they don't use it. Conservative Americans consider poverty to be a moral condition. They believe in a just world, meaning that good things happen to good people and bad things happen to bad people. If someone is poor, it's because they are a bad person. Poor conservatives obviously do not see themselves that way. Their poverty is caused by other bad people who are keeping them from what they deserve. Any day their ship will come in, the bad people will be punished, and then they won't be poor anymore. People should just stay in their own lane, live and let live. How would anyone even know? It's a debit card, it swipes like normal? They always have. I used to work at a grocery store back in the early 90s, and the absolute rage people would fly into if someone ahead of them in line was using food stamps or worse, WIC. Screaming at the customer. Screaming at me, because obviously a teenager working a register makes policy decisions for the USDA. Screaming at the manager and at the store cop. Every time. And it was even worse if the customer using benefits was not white. The world was definitely ending then. I don't really understand this logic. Taxes are to benefit society. Otherwise we would just pay for everything ourselves. I pay taxes for roads I don't drive down, schools my kids don't go to, and bombs that land on people I have no beef with. Yeah, taxes go toward food I don't eat. That's kind of the point of them. If he wants to only pay for his own food, he can also pay for his own security instead of calling 911 the next time he needs help. I mind my own shopping cart. Self-checkout for the win. Some people seem to think that everyone on Snap somehow got lucky with their application. They don't want to work, and they are just sitting home watching TV. Here's a compiled statistic from the USDA to enlighten them with. 74 of the people using Snap are either unable to work due to age, elderly children, are currently employed, or are in an educational program that leads to employment. That includes military families, families displaced by disasters, people with low-income jobs. Most states now have a work requirement for food assistance eligibility if you don't fall into one of the exempted categories. When I broke my neck and had to leave nursing, my income dropped low enough I qualified for 36 of food benefit a month. I worked from age 15-12 until I retired, and I worked just as many hours as people in line with me. And yeah, attitude. I'm willing to bet that most people who rage about SNAP are actually pretty well off. If they weren't, they'd be far more compassionate about people just trying to get by on very little. They assume that anyone on assistance is a moocher who should be starving and only allowed to eat hardtack and gross beans. Therefore, they get all in a rage when those people use SNAP to treat themselves at a soda to their cart. Some people are happiest when they are angry. They have been convinced that poor people cause them harm, and they must work to make sure the very wealthy become more wealthy. I happily spent my food stamps when I got them. I spent 13 years working 67 days a week, paying all of my taxes, and then some. I got ill and couldn't work anymore. Yes, thankfully relied on the help and for the service proved. Happily working and healthy again.